When I first started teaching, I was teaching in a 7th and 8th grade science and math class, and I didn't have much of an idea what I was doing. And the classes wouldn't run well, and students were unruly, and lessons didn't work, and things like that. So I asked a mentor of mine, or went to a mentor of mine for advice, and said, things are just going well. So what can I do? What would make my classes better? And she said, Al, the thing that you need to know is what you're teaching. And she introduced me to learning objectives and the importance of learning objectives for the class. And once I figured out, okay, this is what I'm going to do for each particular class lesson, my classes went so much better. Things just started working. And that's why I'm a fanatic for learning objective. But just what is a learning objective? I've written the formal definition down here, but really all a learning objective is what you want a student to know or to be able to do after they've finished some module of study. They basically act just like a thesis for an individual lesson or even for your whole course. You've probably heard a lot of different terms for learning objectives. Don't worry too much about it. Different methodologies for writing learning objectives use different terms, but they really all come down to the same thing. Regardless of the term, they're all intended to provide focus for your students' learning. Learning objectives are nested things. What do I mean by that? Well, all your learning objectives are going to be in relation to other learning objectives. So here I have sketched out, you have your program, your overall curriculum, that's going to have objectives. Your course is going to have objectives. Then individual objectives within that course, or individual modules within that course, are going to have learning objectives. The methodology that we're using, the relationship between these different learning objectives is expressed by the terms terminal learning objectives and enabling learning objectives. Simply, terminal learning objectives are what the student needs to know at the end of a course of study, and enabling learning objectives are those kinds of learning objectives that get your students to those terminal learning. So here you can see the relationship between terminal learning objectives and enabling learning objectives. The enabling learning objectives simply lead up to or allow the student to be able to achieve that terminal learning objective. Now, because these objectives are nested within each other, they can sometimes serve as both terminal and enabling objectives, depending on where they are placed within your overall course structure. Objectives are also nested within the other elements of the course. So they help determine what types of assessments and what types of learning activities that you're going to choose. That's a very quick introduction to learning objectives. Now we need to figure out how to write good ones, and that's what we'll talk about in our next video.